So good to see you here. I know you are pretty tired because it's Friday and it's the end of the day and we are all a little bit dispirited. But I do believe that this workshop will bring you back to life, and because I did my best to make it highly informative. So this webinar consists of two parts. The first one deals with 21st century skills and the secrets of 21st century learning and teaching. And the second part will deal with graphic organizers as a wonderful tool to promote 21st century skills. You will be engaged during this webinar, so I would ask you to use chat, feel free to speak up and enjoy. So I might start saying a few words about myself. Well, my name is Natalia Holodniuk and I've been working in ELT for 15 years, and I have always wanted to be someone who could help people to learn English. And just like many years ago, it still means a lot to me. I've been working with young learners, teenagers, adults, and all activities you are about to have a look at today are closely connected to real or physical classroom or online learning, and they can be easily adapted to every language level or every age group. So you might agree that 21st century is very exciting time in teaching, and you know that we English language teachers have to learn all the time because ELT changes all the time, and I think that all of you agree that teachers of English are lucky because all those stuff that we are currently implementing at school is not absolutely new for us, because we had an opportunity to learn about that like some 10 years ago. So now I would ask you to use the chat and answer these questions. What ideas come to mind when you think of 21st century skills? What ideas come to mind when you think of 21st century skills? If you don't feel like typing, that's fine, you may speak up. So waiting for your answers. Thank you, Angelica. Technologies, absolutely 4 C's. That's, by the way, what we are going to speak about today. Thank you, ladies. Okay, so as far as we are here, we are moving to the objectives. And today we are going to have a look at some wonderful activities which are aimed to promote 4 essential skills. And I'm going to share my secrets of teaching, and of course, we are going to speak about creativity, collaboration, cooperation, and critical thinking. Just a second, I need to figure it out. Well, and I would ask you to keep this word in mind, as we will get back to it at the end of this part of the session. So, what are life skills? Life skills are psychological abilities for adaptive and positive behavior that enable individuals to deal effectively with the demands and challenges of everyday life. I'm not going to continue reading, but if you Google, you will find out that there are lots of discussions about skills and knowledge, and I agree with the one that says that they are interrelated, interconnected, and they should work together as a team. And nowadays we can Google literally everything, but can we apply this information if we are not able to think critically to evaluate this information? Of course not, so I don't really think so. So let's start by looking at 21st century skills, let's have a look at them more carefully. 21st century skills could be listed as a group of words starting with 4 C's. Those stand for collaboration, communication, critical thinking, and creativity. And to make our teachers' life easier, in 2002, the Partnership for 21st Century Skills began looking at the skills that students need in order to be successful in life after leaving school. And they have identified 4 main skills. These are critical thinking, and it can be also defined as clear, rational, logical thinking and independent thinking. This is to do with creativity, and when we think of creativity in this context, it has nothing to do with paints and pencils, but it's more about different things. And by the way, creativity is considered to be the most difficult skill to be developed. Of course, we can't but mention collaboration, which shows how to work together as a team in order to reach our goal. And of course, communication teaches us how to convey ideas. You may find some variations in the internet or in wording and stuff, but they all encapsulate the same ideas. So why are life skills important? While life skills education does not solve every single problem, it can be a wonderful tool in addressing too many of them. And at schools, students are taught how to read and write. They learn chemistry, biology, physics, and they even learn about space. Some of these subjects are still a rocket science for me. But it seems strange that they still don't learn life skills, like basic life skills. And I believe that students should receive every opportunity to succeed in life, and in this way they will make their dreams the reality. And I do believe that there are very few situations in life, if any, where life skills would not be important. Students can learn to be better citizens, better family members, better friends, and life skills don't just affect the way we interact with the world, but the way we interact with each other. And I do believe that it's important to develop these skills, to start developing these skills as early as possible, because learning life skills help children to create better futures for themselves and so to create better society. Well, when we talk about life skills and about 21st century learning, we can't but mention critical thinking. Why is critical thinking important? There are few reasons why. The answer is very simple, actually, because the decisions we make influence our future. And that is why we need to teach our students critical thinking skills, because they would definitely make the decisions, and we don't want them to regret them. Critical thinking is, of course, to do with seeing both sides of an issue. It's about being open to new evidence. It's about reasoning, solving problems. And I won't be exaggerating to say that you've heard about critical thinking skills, and this is the process of analyzing facts and in order to form a judgment. And basically, we can say that critical thinking is thinking about thinking. And learning to think critically is a life-learned skill. So that's why we need to start developing this skill as early as possible. So, how can students apply critical thinking? The first and the most important stage is identification. So we need to identify the question, that is, what would you like to know? Then we need to move on with research on it. So we need to do a research, and it's important on this stage to provide students with reliable sources of information. Then the next stage, we apply the information and search for some more if we need. The fourth stage is to do with analysis. So on this stage, we analyze it and even do more research. Finally, we draw conclusions, make decisions, and prioritize them. And basically, we present our ideas or communicate our ideas. Of course, it might not always be possible to follow all these steps in the classroom, and it doesn't really matter if it is physical class or online. It can be done as simple as that. You may ask simple question why, and when someone makes a statement, or you may ask a question, where did you find that, and you may ask a question, how do you know that. The goal is not to discredit the student, but the goal is to engage them in critical thinking, to engage them to start thinking critically. And right now you can see an example of how to develop critical thinking skill using Bloom's taxonomy. I'm sure you all are familiar with this picture, with what you see right now. Still, I must say that I love stories and I use them a lot. And this table could be used when we talk about stories, when we watch videos, when we deal with basically various contexts. You can adopt these stages and put them into questions and making them friendly to your students. And at the bottom here is remember. It means that here we use the questions which deals with recognizing and recalling the facts. At the next stage we have understanding, and here we go with understanding what the facts mean. On the applying stage, we apply the facts, rules, and concepts as well as ideas that have been found. And on the next stage, which is analysis, we may show the sample how it works, or we may classify the characters, or we may do any other activity particular for which addresses particular story. But the main idea is to break down the information on this stage. The next stage, which is pre-last, is evaluation. Here we need to make our students think about the value of the information they received. And finally, last but not least, the most important one is actually create, which deals with combining parts to make a new whole. And I must say that apart from asking questions effectively, we have to teach our students to answer these questions effectively, not using simple answers, but to engage them in analyzing, in applying the information they received. And right now you can see the text. Here is the part of the text which is called Growing Up Poor. By the way, you can do just the same with a short video. I often use podcasts as well. I often use materials on British Council Kids and British Council Teens. Short video work really well with that as well. And I have picked up this text, which is level 2, if I'm not mistaken, not because these can be applicable only with these level students, but because I had to find something which is pretty short and won't take you long to read it. So can I ask you to read this text?
Не ошибусь, если скажу, что это главная картина в русской живописи, вот так же, как Пушкин наше все.
Пані Наталі, чи потрібна вам допомога? Ми чуємо якийсь звук. Ви можете закінчити демонстрацію, подивитись.
Ні, це проблема в Наталі речі, якийсь, де може її.
Эту картину он создавал более 20.
Yeah, that's it. Done.
Пані Наталія, коли я вже втрутилася, в мене до вас прохання, ви можете прибрати від мікрофону щось зайве, або листи, або щось таке, або посунути трошки екран від себе, бо ви перегортаєте і це на мікрофон впливає.
No problem.
Добре, дякую дуже.
Well, so we get back to the text, and I would ask you to read the text, and as soon as you are done, please let me know that you are done by using the chat, okay? So I will give you a few minutes to read it out. Okay, awesome. So good. As far as I can see, you are done with reading. So we move to the first stage, which deals with remembering. And on this stage, we can use basic questions to understand if our students remember the information they've been reading. So the first question is who? And the answer to this question is as simple as that, Mike. The next question could deal with the type of the story, and this is life story. As for location, we may ask the question where, and the answer is LA. And when he was a child. Of course, you can move on. It depends on your students, and you know your students better than any course book in the world and better than anyone else. If you feel they can do that, you may ask your students to name 2 things in the text that stand out for them. Can I ask you right now to think at least about one thing that in the text that stand out to you? If you want to, you may share, so raise your hand and you're welcome to speak. Are there any volunteers? Was there something in the text that stand out for you? Okay, drunks, good. Thank you, Oksana. And poverty, yeah, good. Awesome, thank you. That's right. That is actually not the not the best text probably to deal with. You need to know your students and feel if this text works for them, because for me, as I see it, it's really motivating, and it's when you finish reading this text, and you will understand why. So we are moving to the next text, to the next stage, and the next stage is understanding. On this stage, we may ask the question like, why did his mom have to work 2 jobs? And the answer is, Mom took care of Mike and his brother, that's why. So basically we can ask another question. What is the main idea then? You need to be very clever in order to survive. On the applying stage, in this stage, it's important to provide your students with the beginning of the sentences, if you want them to use this language. And what I wouldn't do, I wouldn't give any sample answers asking the questions, because I don't know about your students, but mine would repeat exactly what I have already told. So I don't want them to copy using like different wording. I want them to think. So for that reason, you may start by asking questions. Do you consider violence to be an issue? And asking explain why. Or how would you deal with violence at school or with bullying at school? It depends. So in this way, they will connect it to their real life, and they would be able to apply the knowledge they received or the information they received. On analyzing stage, what do I normally do? I normally provide them with kind of support. So right here you can see graphic organizer, which is mom, Mike, and neighborhood. Just to support them with some visuals. And you may ask your students questions, what could Mike do if he was older? And you may also move on with classifying characters according to the pictures and asking them for their opinions about these characters. As for evaluating, here is critically important to remember the information which was read, because it's critically important to connect it to the text. It should be based on the information in the text. So here we can debate pros and cons living in this kind of neighborhood, and of course we can discuss the importance of environment we live in. So you may move on with another question. How would you have handled this kind of life, or whatever you consider to be an issue in this particular story? And the final stage is creating. On this stage, like it basically says for itself, on this stage you may ask your students to create their own story, or to finish reading the one which you can see now. So I would give you some time to finish reading and we'll move on. Okay, are you ready? Hope you are. So, you may also ask your students to think of possible endings, or you may offer them to finish reading the text just like I did. And after reading the original story, you may ask your students about the other ways of how this story could be developed. Well, and we move to creativity. And when children come to our classroom, they are always creative, and basically they are full of creativity. But can they benefit out of it? Probably no, because they know very little English in order to benefit out of it. But creativity is important for different reasons. And you know, when the top waltz companies were asked what would they consider to contribute to the success of their company, creativity came out on top. So it's needless to say how important this skill to develop. And what do we need to remember about creativity? Is that, first of all, that it's not limited, and second of all, that it's all about using imagination. And you know, creativity has kind of bad reputation, because we think of creativity as of something disruptive. But basically, creativity is one of the most skills to develop, because it's important to teach our children on this stage to use divergent way of thinking. Normally in our everyday life, our learners as well as we use divergent thinking. We use convergent thinking, which is quite opposite to divergent thinking. It means that we ask basic questions without much thinking. So we need to change their focus and to teach them to use divergently. Of course, creativity is important because it deals with curiosity, which encourages questions, and so this is the way children start to use divergent thinking. As teachers, we need to use visual aids in order to develop these skills. And of course, gamification in order to encourage participation of our students. One of the most crucial factors here is to explain that students that creativity requires effort. So it doesn't mean that it can be developed in a single day or in a single week. It requires a lot of time and effort to be developed. And like I said, creativity is not limited. So would you please now use chat and think of and type an adjective that best describes the text growing up poor? The first adjective that associates with this text. Okay, I can see some answers. So the answers are hardworking, lacking food and money, exemplary. Sorry, but Oksana, I didn't hear this adjective before, so sorry for mispronouncing. Hardworking, lacking food and money, persistent, awesome, thank you. Difficult, yeah, you're absolutely right. Right, you are, ladies. Thanks for that. And you may also, like a follow-up question could be another one. Would you explain why do you associate this adjective with this text? So would you please, if you feel like speak, you may raise your hand and speak up. You are welcome. Just unmute your microphone and speak. If you feel like typing, you are welcome to type. Yes, Lesya, you are welcome.
So I wrote two adjectives, hardworking and persistent. I think so. I mentioned these two adjectives because their mom was hardworking. He had to work too much to get money to give everything their children needed. And so she's hardworking. And Mike also is hardworking and persistent because he wanted to survive in that cruel neighborhood, in that I don't know, bad atmosphere, bad out world, and he tried to do all the best at school to get good education and to get better future, and to help his mom in the future. And I think so these adjectives are the most important here, to my mind, hardworking and persistent. So if you want, mostly these two adjectives for me mean the same, because if you're persistent, you're hardworking. So I think so.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much. Lovely ideas. And so this is the sample how it might work. The next, Lesya, you want to add something? No, that was a mistake. Well, and
it was me. Yeah, it's a comment about about exemplary.
Yeah.
About exemplary. Exemplary means following somebody's example.
Right.
When you do something, when you are persistent and eventually you demonstrate a good result, then other people may follow your kind of lifestyle, the way something you did. So
yeah, right.
So
you're gonna be a role model for someone.
Right. Yeah.
And by the way, thanks a lot for jumping in and explaining that word to me, because like I didn't get that. Thank you for that. So we are moving on, and another lovely activity could be, you may ask your students to think of another title for the text, and again, explain them why do they think that this title would be better than Growing Up Poor, that the original, which was written by the author. If you have any ideas, just feel free to unmute your microphone and share your ideas. You may also use chat if you want. Okay, and last activity which could be introduced here is you may ask your students to think of what could be done differently. I mean, in other way. For example, what would Mike's life be like if he, let's say, didn't study well at school? And what makes them think so? So in this way, you can motivate your students to study well as well. And we are moving on to another lovely activity, which is called making connections. And why making connections important? Well, they are important for several reasons. The first one is that your students can connect the text they read to themselves. The next one is that they can connect this text to the book they have read. And of course, they can connect this text to the world around them, which is very important. Making connections are also important because they make learning meaningful, because this is the way students learn why do they need it and when they can apply this or that information. So in this way, the information from the text becomes relevant to their life, to their own experience, to the book they read, to the time they have experienced. Or to the situation they've heard from their relatives or friends. This is the picture I took, which was taken at the internet. But basically, you can create your own picture or your own questions. And here I would ask you to have a look at these. So the first question, what did this text remind you of, if anything? The next one, if you were Mike, what would you do? The third one, do you have a goal? Who do you want to be, or where would you love to live? And what do you need to do to become successful in future? I know that it's kind of complicated even for teachers to answer all these questions. I mean, what do you have a goal, especially in today's context? Still, you may ask your students to pick up the one they want to answer and they are comfortable to share this information with the rest of the class or with you. And you may ask your students to pick up 2 sentences, 2 questions if they feel like answering them. Or if you have time, you are welcome, the floor is yours, you may do all of them. But the answers to the last one would require some time. So be very careful when working with this activity, in case you do. And another wonderful activity, and yeah, Lester, you are welcome. You wanted to add something?
No, I thought I would answer the questions.
Okay, like you are welcome, of course. Yeah, so which one would you...
So this text, maybe for me, the story of this text is really important because actually I still think that everything depends on you. And if you want to have a good future and successful future, you have to do everything possible to reach it. If I were Mike, I would also study well. I would also try to do everything possible to get good education, to study well, and then to get to the university and then get good job and then help my family. As all of us, we all have goals, and I don't have just a goal. I have many goals, and when I reach it, I have another one. So I would still like to live in my country, Ukraine, because I love it very much. And as for other countries, I would like just travel around the world and see different, I don't know, exciting places. But I would still like, I would like to live here. And as for successful future, so we have to do everything possible. If you have a goal, you know, you will do everything possible to get success, and to be successful in your future. So I don't know, maybe I don't know anyone who doesn't have a goal. We all have goals, and I wish everyone to have goals and to be successful in the future.
Thank you, awesome. You know, Lesa, I know what you mean by saying that I want to live in my country. I do know what you mean. So I absolutely share this viewpoint because there is no place like home, and that is true. Thank you for your answers. That was so lovely to hear you. And,
Thank you.
And the next activity is pretty simple activity. Most important that this is literally zero preparation activity, and I'm sure you all love it. So what can you ask your students to do? All you need to do is just to pick up the word from the text, just like I did. I choose the word home because it's very, like, you know, I consider it to be central in this story. So, and you ask your students to make a sentence using the letters of the word as the first letter of each word in the sentence. There's only one but. Do not pick up long words, because otherwise you will have troubles with grammar, vocabulary, and stuff. So the word should be pretty short, and so here's what we have. Here's our mom's equipment. It doesn't really matter that we have H, which is not really good for making new sentences, and E. So I did that on purpose in order to show you that it doesn't require like a lot of effort, and it's really the one which makes them think. Well, and right now I would like you to join our discussion. You may either use chat, you may raise your hands, but personally, I love art and I love pictures and I use them a lot. And what is good about pictures is that you can literally use it with every single topic. And pictures are good for one more reason, that they promote not only critical thinking and creativity, but they promote communication. They make students talk. So that is the reasons. And right now I would ask you to think of possible answers to these questions. What do these pictures have in common? Or what do these boys have in common? I've got one answer.
They both go to school.
Absolutely.
Well, they both study. They both are students.
Exactly. Right, yeah, thank you. Yeah. Curiosity, yeah. Both of them look curious. Okay, any other ideas? Nope. Okay, then we move to another task. And the next task is to think of, like, let's call them 2 ideas, like possible challenges those boys might face in the future, and provide evidence to support your opinion. Do these boys have similar path in life? Will they face similar challenges? Will they have to work equally in order to reach their goals? So what are your ideas? What do you think about that? I can get you back to these pictures if you like. So any ideas?
May I?
Yes, you're welcome.
Okay, so, oh, sorry, sorry. Okay, well, so I think the boy on the second picture, in the second picture, can have some challenges with getting his higher education, I mean, university, and then he will have a difficult maybe way to find a nice job after graduating from the university. The first boy, the boy in the first picture will do it or can do everything easily. And the main challenge is, well, he will get bored with his life very quickly, I think.
Why
Okay.
do you think that he would feel bored?
I don't know, maybe because he has got everything now. Maybe not everything now, but it's not difficult for him. He should not overcome maybe many difficulties. He can go to school, so he gets everything easily. Well, and we know if children have some obstacles, I mean, in their studying, they are more persistent in this. And otherwise, children like take everything for granted and they do not do anything. Like
Yeah, I
sometimes.
absolutely agree with you. Absolutely. Thank you for your opinion. Thank you. And the next lovely activity, which is aimed to develop not only creativity, but which could be used when you work with grammar, vocabulary, context, is called expanding sentences. And this is a lovely activity which works really well. But what should you keep in mind when you start working with that? I wouldn't recommend you to use all the stages at a time. So you may start with the first two questions, so answering the two questions, because then it would be a little bit challenging and it will take a lot of time during the lesson. So the first sentence which I offer, Mike went to school. And then we move on with the question where. Mike went to school in LA. Then we move on with one question, and children need to, or students, learners need to move on with expanding the information. Mike went to school in LA when he was a little boy. Why? Mike went to school in LA when he was a little boy to get a good education. What for? Mike went to school in LA when he was a little boy to get a good education to enter the university. And as a rule, when students work with this activity, they answer the questions. They don't really think much about grammar, the positions of words, vocabulary. They just put it all together. So that's why it's a good idea. It would be a good idea to finish it with write the sentence nicely. Well, basically we can move on to another activity, which is circle time. Like I call it what happens next. And when teachers tell me that circles work well with young learners, I say that they work well with adults as well, and many and teenagers, everyone. Just a second, need to check what. Good, awesome lesson. And I would like to say that they work with every age category. And here we may move on with continuing this story. Once upon a time, there was a boy. His name was Mike. And one day he decided to find a job to support his family. And then your students have to take turns using the vocabulary which is given right here. But then the first person, the second person use suddenly and expand this story. Like develop another sentence and continue making this story. Normally, these stories are very funny. They are energetic. Students become very excited while creating them, and sometimes we even mime these stories we made. So I would recommend this activity because it's really a good one, and of course it covers all necessary skills. I mean critical thinking, creativity, communication and collaboration. And here we are, communication and collaboration. Actually, all activities in English language classrooms are communicative. At least they should be communicative. But can we communicate effectively without effective collaboration? Your ideas. Can we communicate without collaboration?
Can, but can we call it an effective communication?
No, we can't. So that's right. Thank you, Natalia. You've got a point. And there are lots of activities which are aimed to promote both skills, collaboration and communication. And you can see them now all together because I do believe that they are closely connected. And I do believe that the most crucial factor in collaboration is communication, because otherwise we won't reach the goal. And what should we keep in mind? What should we remember while talking about collaboration and communication? It's all about building trust and promoting communication. It's all about the use of technology. We can't but mention that because we live in the 21st century. And it's all about creating small groups, because then your students will have less room to hide. So they will have to collaborate and communicate. On this slide right now, you can see various activities which are aimed to promote both skills, I mean communication and collaboration. One of my favorite is bag of questions, because it is absolutely it could be easily adapted to any topic. The only thing you need to do is to get ready with the questions which are in the bag, and you may play some music and pass this bag around the class, and your students pick up the question, read it out. For them, they do not consider it to be a learning process. For them, it's kind of fun and that's it. But for you, it's developing skills. It's about developing skills, communication, collaboration. It's their critical thinking and of course creativity, because who knows what question he or she can pick up. And one more thing I'd like to focus is environment, because being very busy with grammar, vocabulary and stuff, we often forget about the most important thing, which probably supports learning. Because if the child feels comfortable, if he feels safe, if he or she feels this friendly atmosphere, has the sense of belonging, only in this case this child can be successful. And only basically classroom environment is crucial for building forces. I mean for dealing with critical thinking, communication, collaboration and creativity. So don't forget about that. And last but not least is reflection. we know that a good teacher reflects on what was done, right? And the same should happen to students. We need to teach them how to reflect, because we do not learn from experience, we learn from reflective on our experience. Anyway, well, basically, now I would ask you to get back to the word that I asked you to keep on mind. And here we go with the secrets. So what are the secrets of 21st century teaching? These are to do, secret is to do with skills we need to develop, environment we need to create, connections we need to make, reflection, engagement, because otherwise we can't build collaboration, technology we need to use, because we live in in the 21st century, we use technology a lot, and of course all these components contribute to success. And here I have some time to show you how graphic organizers work. So just let me give me a second and we'll move on. Okay, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. And so when we talk about graphic organizers, you probably ask yourself a question: why graphic organizers are included in this session? And I have two answers to this question. The first one, that they are super effective in terms of developing 4 C's. I mean, creative thinking, critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. And the second reason is to do with the US schools. When I was studying at the University of Nevada, I had an opportunity, probably just like you, those who are TEA alumni. So I had an opportunity to observe lessons at school. And honestly, there were lots of things that impressed me a lot. But I'm going to focus on use of graphic organizers as tools to develop critical thinking, creativity, communication, and collaboration. And due to the fact that we live in a super digital world and we use technology a lot, every day we check our social networks, we read posts, we read articles, short, some short pieces of text, and of course we read books, but it's gonna be another story. Today I'd like to focus on our everyday reading. So would you please answer the question, how often do you read with a single purpose to get the main idea? If you do that always, then you need to use 1. So type 1 in the chat. If you do it usually, use 2. 3 stands for sometimes and 4 never. So please use chat and type the number which works for you. A single purpose to get the idea. We are talking about this in context of everyday reading. So guys, thank you for your answers, and well, you will be honestly surprised because recent survey conducted by Kelton Global in 13 countries showed that 97, if I'm not mistaken, I don't really remember that number, but if I'm not mistaken, 97 or 96% of people do everyday reading with the single purpose to get the idea. So that is the realia. And you know, we like we being teachers, we know better than anyone else how to identify the main information in the story, how to find that in the text, how to deal with that, how to define what is more important or less important, and so on and so forth. So how can we teach our students do so? And here comes the graphic organizers. So what we are going to do today with them, we will identify different types of graphic organizers. We will define what is it. I will demonstrate the effectiveness of them. We'll compare them, and well, basically we won't have time to design, but I will provide you with the resources to do so. And of course, we'll focus on functions, types, advantages in terms of learning the teacher and other things. And basically, when, kind of situation when we explain something and then we explain that once again and then over-explain. And explanations are fine, but sometimes we need to generalize the text. We need to work with vocabulary and grammar in a way that is easier for our students. And graphic organizers do just that. They are different from mind mapping, because I know that all of us, and I do remember myself studying at the university using mind mapping, they are different from mind mapping because, like, I'm not going to say that right now, just have a look at this picture. Why are they different? Because mind map, this is the way you see the information in the text and you yourself create this map. Graphic organizer is a ready-made template which is provided by the teacher. So it's basically a diagram that represents the relationships of ideas, of information from some source. And there are different forms of graphic organizers, and the most important thing here is that the form should be a good match for the kind of thinking. So, why do we need graphic organizers? First, they help to isolate important information. They help to organize important information into coherent structure. They also help to integrate information and see the relationships between the information and the concept. They also contribute to visual learning because they are just awesome for visual learners. They activate the right brain, and they become a vehicle for teaching thinking skills. Here you can see different kinds of graphic organizers, and you know that you may find different variations in the internet, and of course the same organizers could be named differently. So do not focus on the way they are called, because there are, like I said, very different options of how to call them. Various sites have different namings. Still, I have identified 10 most popular graphic organizers, and right now we are starting to work with the first one, which is called selections or passages. And what is the main idea? Like I said, graphic organizer is aimed to identify the most important information in the passage. So basically, if you have a text which, let's say, consists of four passages, then you will have to use a graphic organizers and divide it into 4 parts. And the very simple question your students need to answer is, what is the most important information in this passage? And write it down. And then they provide the evidence. They explain why they consider this information to be important. And you know, one of my students often, it was really challenging for her to retell the text, to identify the most important information. And when we started using graphic organizers, things just changed forever and ever, you know. She became very good at doing that, and nowadays she doesn't need organizers any longer. But they really supported her learning and contributed to her success in identifying the important information in the text. And here we go with another text, which is called "Texting while walking is dangerous." It's very short, as you can see. And I would give you like 2 minutes to look through this text just for you to know what we are going to deal with. Thank you for letting me know. And so here we go with this exactly the same graphic organizer, but due to the fact that this text was divided into, this circle is divided into two due to the fact that the text consists of 2 passages. So what is the main information in the first one? Writing messages and walking is dangerous. And here we support our statement with the evidence, because people forget how to work properly and they run into people. The second passage is focused on there are few reasons why, because it provides basically the reasons. And here we go. Can see nothing but keyboard, minds are somewhere else, they have accidents, and sometimes serious head injuries. This could be a wonderful follow-up activity after reading a text, and it also will help your students to retell the text, to discuss it, and to organize the text into the structure which is visually really friendly to your student. I don't know about your students and about you, but I might say that I'm 100% visual learner, because when I do not see something, it means if I hear something but I cannot provide it I'm not provided with visuals, I will remember nothing. That's for sure. And that's why I try to supply my students with visuals in order to make it easier for them to understand this or that structure. So here's another organizer which is called passages organizer, and it is basically to do with description. So possible questions could be: what are its features, what are its qualities, what is being described. And here we go. Texting and walking is dangerous because one can run into people and cars, or one cannot think of walking safely, and as a result, many people have accidents. Another lovely organizer is called proposition organizer. The first question is: what is the general topic, or what is the issue? Then what is the viewpoint, or what kind of viewpoint was presented, and how this viewpoint is being supported. So what does it do? It is basically to do with setting a hypothesis or proposition. Then we move to developing higher order critical thinking skills and helping the children to focus during reading or during listening. And let's have a look at the way it works. So texting and walking. The first one. Texting and walking is dangerous because people run into people and cars. Sometimes they fall over things in the street. Thousands of people have accidents because they can't see when they look at the keyboard. And people forget to work properly as they are focused on texting. Their minds are somewhere else. The next one is to do with events. And this one is a lovely one, but in case your text is a good one for a story, you know, when we have like the first event, the second event, the sequence of events, in other words. And it's really good one because it helps learners to structure the text, and it also contributes to their speaking, because we make it easy to speak. So here we go with another sample, and I would ask someone, I need a volunteer to read out this sequence. Who wants to do that?
So may I?
Yes, please, Leslie. Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so walking and texting is dangerous. We run into people or cars and fall over things in the streets. People can see when they look at the keyboard. Thousands of people have serious injuries.
Right, yeah, thank you, absolutely. Thank you for reading.
Yeah.
And another lovely organizer is called Problem and Solution. And this one could be applicable on everyday basis, because it really works well when we have problems and we are looking for solutions. So for example, what do we start with? We start with identifying the problem. What was the problem and who had it? Then we move to action. What was done to solve it? Or if we are talking about the situation we do not know how to deal with, we may ask another question. What could be done to solve it? Or what will I have to do in order to solve it? And basically result. So what happened as a result of that action, or what would happen as a result of that action? So like I said, this is absolutely awesome, because it's not only about structuring the text, but it's about problem solving. It's about like, you know, this kind of organizer is really helpful in real life, because we can easily identify the problem, we can think of possible actions and what do these actions lead to. So here we go with our texting while walking. So we identified the problem, and the problem is texting while walking. It's dangerous, right? Or texting while walking. Then we need to order steps toward its resolution. So people should be more careful when texting, and they shouldn't text while walking. And as a result, probably will have less accidents. So, like I said, we can use this organizer in our real life on everyday basis. You may think of a problem you currently have, or you normally have in your classroom, I mean physical classroom or online class. And you may also think of a disruptive learner. So basically, you can apply this organizer to your real life, and I think that it would be really beneficial for all of us to use this one. The next organizer is called cause and effect, and these are basically diagrams that describe how events affect one another in the process. And the students might be able to identify the cause and the effect or event and the process. So basically, we talk here about how one step affects the other. Here are some samples of cause-effect organizer. And we can also do it like that. We can apply it to the text we've read. So is there anyone who would like to read it out?
May I?
Yeah, you're welcome.
If no one wants. So I have to read that is on the screen, right?
Yeah.
Identify and analyze the cause and the effect.
And you move here.
No. Mobile phones, people busy texting.
Okay.
Then orange one, right? Identify and
You know, like, look. This,
how one step. Okay. Identify and analyze the cause and the effect. Their minds are somewhere else. They aren't thinking about walking safely.
and this is
How,
to, yeah, with one step, yeah.
how one step affects the other. Run into people or cars. Thousands of people have accidents, some serious head injuries. Disjoint events, one cause, multiple events, chain of events, and a cycle of events.
Okay, thank you, Lisa.
You're welcome.
Next organizer is called compare and contrast. This one is probably perfect when we want to compare or contrast something. And there are two circles and they overlap in the middle, and students compare two things, and they also write what is different about these things. What do they have in common, and at the same time, what do they have, like, what is different about them? And I would appreciate if someone else except Lesa would read out what we have here.
Okay, right. Okay.
You know, I like reading.
Yeah, I know, Lesa, but I want to give a chance to someone else. If any. Yeah, you're welcome.
Okay, so, well, I don't see properly, sorry. How are driving and texting and walking and texting similar and different? Driving and texting is less dangerous than walking and texting. More people get injured while walking than driving, but the both are dangerous.
Okay, thank you. Next one. Next organizer is to do with categories and classifying. So here we need to identify what is the overall topic. And then we move to another question. What main categories does it have? And what things do in each what things go in each category? And what are the subcategories? So the topic is texting while walking, and the main categories: thousands of people have accidents and some have serious head injuries. And as for the first category, their minds are somewhere else, and people run into people or fall over the things in the street. And the last one, people can't see when they look at the keyboard, and that's the problem. One more graphic organizer is to do with plot development. Of course, this one won't work for every single story or every single text, but it's really good when you read the story with lots of characters, when we have exposition, rising action, climax, falling action, and resolution. It really works well with that. And of course, like, our text does not, like, it has nothing to do with these diagrams, so that's why I haven't prepared any sample for you. But it really works well with huge stories and text. But here is what I offer you to do right now. I'm going to show you a short story, and based on what we have, based on this diagram, you will have to define the exposition, rising action, climax, falling back action, and resolution. So if you are ready, I'm going to show you this story. Can you hear the sound? Is that fine? Okay.
Many years ago, in Denmark, there was a prince called Hamlet. One day, Hamlet's father, the king, dies suddenly, and Hamlet is very sad. After this, Hamlet's mother Gertrude gets married again. Very quickly, she marries her husband's brother, Claudius. And Claudius is now the king.
Oh, how could you do this to me?
One night, Hamlet's friend Horatio tells him that there is a ghost in the castle. It is the ghost of Hamlet's father.
Claudius killed me with poison. Hamlet, you must punish Claudius for me.
Hamlet is confused. He doesn't know if he believes the ghost, and he doesn't know what to do. Hamlet now acts very strangely. He is mean and angry, and he upsets his girlfriend, Ophelia.
Go away! Leave me alone!
Oh, he is so mean. One day, a group of actors come to the castle, and Hamlet makes a plan. He asks the actors to change their play. The new play will show a king poisoned like Hamlet's father.
With this play, I will catch the king.
When Claudius watches the play, he looks very worried and runs away. Hamlet sees him, and he knows the truth. Claudius is very worried about Hamlet now and makes a plan with Ophelia's brother, Laertes.
You will fight him, and we will put poison on the sword and in his drink too.
Laertes and Hamlet fight. Laertes cuts Hamlet. But in the fight, Hamlet takes Laertes' sword and cuts him with it too. Here, Hamlet, drink this.
No, thank you, Mother. I'm not thirsty. No, don't! It was him. He poisoned us all.
Finally, Hamlet knows he must stop Claudius.
Have this and this!
All the royal family are now poisoned, and Hamlet tells his friend that there must be a new king.
Goodbye, my prince.
We are going to discuss this story in terms of plot diagram. And let's start with exposition. I pick up the story of Hamlet on purpose because I do know that all of you know that you read or heard or watched about Hamlet, so it won't be that difficult for you to identify the main parts of this story. So let's start with exposition. What do you think is that? What could be identified as the beginning of the story, where characters and setting are introduced? What could be said here?
The king died. So, in general, or just according to the story?
According to the story.
Okay, maybe the king died and mother married the other man.
Okay, and what could be identified as rising action? I mean, where the main character faces a series of conflicts. When this happens and what basically happens? Okay, any other volunteers? Would you like to speak, ladies?
Nobody is here.
That's because it's Friday and it's
The king has died, and the boy was suffering because he hadn't a father, and he didn't like her mom's new husband.
So we might say that he faced different difficulties, right? And he didn't know what to do. And climax normally deals with the most exciting part of the story. So what part of the story would you identify to be or define to be the most exciting part?
The meeting with the ghost, maybe.
Okay, thank you, Lesya. What about you, Natasha?
Maybe fighting.
Yeah, probably the fight, right? Meeting the ghost, right? That was, I think that meeting the ghost is more to do with rise in action, right? And the fight is to do with climax. What do you think could be considered to be fall in action? What part of this story? The events that lead to the end of the story.
When everybody dies after the fight.
Yes, absolutely. And what could be defined as a resolution? The end of the story.
The boy gave the crown to his brother.
Yeah, exactly. Right, you are. Thank you, ladies. You are absolutely right. And we are moving on. Just a second. Okay. And I must say that most students in your classroom will find graphic organizers useful and motivational. And they will work together, they will share ideas, they will discuss different viewpoints, and they come up with group response for an organizer. And everything will be awesome. But there will be some who do not like them. This is a kind of, I know everything students and I don't need any visual support, but like truthfully told, there are students that don't really need them. They are fine with identifying the most important information and they don't need a visual support in terms of graphic organizers to be provided. So that's why if the student is able to do that on his own, let him do that. Do not make him use this kind of stuff because like everyone else in the class does that. So, here I would like to introduce you some sites and apps which are free, and some of them are not, but in a very basic version they are. So you may use them in order to create free organizers. I don't know if you noticed, but all these, this one was created in Creately. This one was taken from the internet, and this is as simple as smart art. And the rest of them are also like very simple. I did that on purpose to show you that basically we don't need to have a lot of we don't need a lot of resources in order to create a graphic organizer. Of course, if you want it to look awesome, to look nice, and to be, I don't know, like the one that your students would love to use. Of course, you can go to these sites like Canva, Creately, and many others. By the way, some of them are filled with ready-made worksheets. So basically, you don't need to create anything. All you need to do is to register and download the one that you really want, and the one that you really need, and the one that you consider to be applicable for this or that story or video and so on. And in terms of graphic organizers, they are like getting back to this point. I would like to say that of course it's up to you whether to use graphic organizers or not, but graphic organizers promote critical and creative thinking skills and provide super flexible format for students' responses. And they also provide the evidence that sometimes it's quite difficult to teach our students to provide the evidence. But if they have something written, then they provide the evidence, like they can easily put it all together, and it makes them more successful in doing these things. And I would ask you to use the chat and type what's your favorite graphic organizer. What graphic organizer do you like best, or would you like to use, or the one probably you have already used some graphic organizers. So which one is your favorite? If you want to, I can get back to show them. So this is plot diagram. Then we move to categories. This one is called compare and contrast. This one, cause and effect. Problem, action, result, like basically problem, result. Then sequence or chain of events. Then preposition, description, and selections or passages.
Okay, may I say? Well, so compare and contrast, we use it, and it's something like Venn diagram. Well, something like we use widely too. Okay, then I'd like to use plot management and the sequence of events. We use it maybe. Well, it is not as good organized as your graphic diagram, but we use it.
Basically, they are not mine. I wasn't an author, but thank you for that. I have just noticed that Angelica wrote that I guess the type depends on activity. Absolutely, absolutely. That's absolutely true, and it depends on what you are going to do, what's your aim, what for example, if you, let's say, work with a story, then it could be the one that we've been dealing right now, which is called plot diagram. If you deal with the text, it could be compare, contrast, or sequence of events. Of course, it depends. I do agree with you. Well, probably someone else would like to share. What is your favorite graphic organizer, or what is the one that you would like to use? You can type, you can speak. Okay, so I think that we are about to wrap it up. So I must say that graphic organizers are by no means very useful for both teachers, because they help us to teach, and learners, because they help them to learn, because they make our lessons more engaging, more fun, and probably easily comprehensible. And my last message for you today. Thank you for being here. I know that it's been a long day. Just like I said, I have anticipated this kind of scenario, that you are all tired because it's Friday, it's been hot and stuff like that. And I hope that you will have a lovely weekend. So thank you for being there. I hope you will be able to use and to apply the information you heard in your physical classroom as soon as it is possible. I hope that very soon we'll get back to our schools and get back to our normal life. So guys, have a lovely weekend. Take care, and Slava Ukraini!